a great rousing to our debate. Harish, what do you reckon was the issue which really touched and warmed your heart?
I think the most important thing for me was the fact that we need to have data to be made available, transparency of data, so that we can make informed decisions. The challenge we have is the data is really sitting in one side of the house, which is at the government side, and even though some of the data is available, it is only some of the data, not all of the data, so that we as individuals, citizens, we have a educated population on board. They can assess, they can understand. We need to be able to get independently the data and do our own assessment. And then whether we agree or disagree, whatever policy that is made based on the data that they have. So that we are now collectively moving forward instead of saying, we have the data, we have analyzed it, and therefore this is how it is. And then try and convince us. Let us work together collaboratively. And that's where I come from. And I think that's really what struck that was not sufficiently addressed. And I think that needs to be addressed.
Are you surprised after 50 years there's no clear transparency from the government?
Well, I don't expect something to happen in 50 years. I think the bigger problem was to have transparency, you needed a bunch of things to have happened along the way. One of the things that had to happen, and that is available today, is the technology that we have. Without the technology with you, with computerized systems and data, you have very little means to do the assessment, do the analysis. Today you can. And if we don't do it, we are just shortchanging ourselves and going back to the old ways of doing stuff, which is, I know what I know, and I'm deciding on what I know, and you better follow what I did, and I have to explain to you. We have to go past that. That was the old way of doing it. Today we have the technology, and so really, we are shortchanging ourselves if we don't do it.
Okay, so you're very passionate. You spoke a lot during the debate. What was your one most endearing point?
I don't think it was a particular content issue for me. What to me was most endearing about this debate was the willingness of each of the participants to debate, to talk about, to listen to each other and openly answer questions without feeling that this was, unlike in the old styles where you only hear them debate when somebody makes a point at a rally and then somebody responds the next day at another rally. This was great because it was an open debate and everybody had an opportunity to speak. And I liked the fact that the parties were willing to turn up. I liked the fact that they openly spoke with confidence about their particular issues. What was very telling was what they said, what they didn't say. I think it also very telling how they chose to answer or not answer questions. These all speak volumes about who our candidates are and who the parties are. And I was very pleased to see debates like this starting in Singapore. It's excellent for us.
Touching on Harish's point of transparency.
Yes.
Was there enough transparency today?
Look, I think we didn't go detailed enough into issues and we stopped short, in fact, of saying we didn't want to get into too much detail. So it wasn't a question of somebody was asked a question and then they refused to give information. Do I think that there is enough willingness to get into transparency? I think we didn't get a resounding, yes, we must have more transparency and this is what we will do. We didn't get that answer. But what we did have was the willingness to debate it and explain why we can't. And I accept that in situations like negotiations, you probably have issues of confidentiality. You can't throw it open. But I also accept that I think everybody accepted that engagement of stakeholders is important. And so what would be important then on the transparency issue is to see is during the days of debates as this goes on, because this is one of the issues, how do the political parties, well, we know how the opposition feels about it, but how does the ruling party feel about this issue of transparency and sharing more information? This has been traditionally a no-go area, a difficult area for them. And moving forward after these elections, how this issue is treated.
Okay, Madeline, what would be your best takeaway point from this debate?
Best takeaway point. Actually, I was also thinking the same thing. The very fact that such a debate took place and that so many people came at the time of between 3 and 5, and that's the prime time of working time, and apart from the politicians who made the time to come here, was the audience, which comprised people of varying backgrounds and ages, so that in a forum like that we can actually hear diverse views and people were prepared to speak up, which was something that didn't happen some years ago, and
Yeah.
I think this is a very positive development. And like Suji said, I hope this continues to really develop further.
You brought the right point of a good afternoon debate. Is that why at night the rallies are all full, with Singaporeans enjoying the nocturnal talk rather than at any other time of the day?
I think, yeah, rallies being held from 7 p.m. onwards makes it much easier for people to be able to attend. So maybe likewise, this debates, of course, then it will clash with rallies, but perhaps the timing issue, I think it plays a large part in the attendance. I don't know how my fellow attendees feel about it.
I think one of the challenge with a rally is that it is really a one-way street. You know, it's they telling one party telling the other side, and there's no feedback other than a yell or a clap or a boo or something like that. Yeah, so to me that's really a show. You know, I really cannot have good discussions there. What we need as a society matures, we need people to have discussions so that we can talk and we are able to disagree and not be upset by disagreeing, because that's really what marks a society, that in adversarial scenarios you have disagreements, and yet after you agree on disagreeing, you then move forward. Eugene mentioned something about the country splitting apart during the election, and then over 4 or 5 years healing and then coming together and to be split again. It should never be that. We shouldn't have to have this split close thing.
Yes.
Why should it be like that? You know, so that's really what is missing. And why? Because it has always been a one-way street. So this IQ session, plus hopefully a lot more, really engage people. We need time to discuss, to think, to mull over, not be banging on a rostrum somewhere or on a loudhailer and going around. That's so 1960s. It's so 20th century. We need to do it differently, and I think this is a start. It took us a long time to get here, but we're here now.
You mentioned a good point. Even in a football game, you go in as an opposition.
Right.
You don't go in as an enemy.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, on the same point, they talk of sporting culture, football culture. Do we really have a right political culture in Singapore?
What is right, right? What is a right political culture? We have a political culture. But I think what you see across the ground and the way things have been moving in the last few elections, the electorate as a whole wants a change in the political culture. That has become clear. And what do we mean by that? They want more engagement, they want more debate, they want more voices in parliament. So is that a right political culture? Many people will say so, many people will disagree. But I think we have to remember one thing. First of all, this is a democracy. It is not a system where if you get the predominance of votes, then only your party rules. Across the globe, democracy is a particular system that has been shown to be tried and trusted to be true. It must be for a reason. Nobody has changed that. People have tried communism, and that has by and large failed. And people have tried things like in the Arab states, where you have one party in Africa which rule, and eventually they fall apart. Democracy works for a reason. The desire and need for check and balances has been established over time. I think as a society we are moving towards not just understanding that, but wanting that change and asking for that change and implementing that change in the elections that we have been seeing. I think it's a good development for a society. I think it is the opposition needs to stand up and start fielding the kind of candidates that can hold their own and make real use of this check and balance and play their role in that fashion. And the incumbent party must be willing to let go of the sense that if they lose seats, it's because they have lost the mandate. Because that is not what it means. They are returned election after election for a reason. They have our mandate.
Okay, Madeline, final question. She mentioned rightly on letting go. Why is it so hard for the PAP to let go?
This is a question which I cannot answer. Of course, we have to ask the PAP. And exactly on that point also, it struck me that there seems to be an allergy towards things like making U-turns, and it's like, we didn't do it because of the Workers' Party and all that. what's wrong with making changes to your policies if it is not working right? We're not God. We make mistakes, and I think it is something very, very laudable that, especially as a ruling party, if you think that your policies are not working, change. We voters respect that. We like seeing that they're taking the feedback, whether it's from us or from the opposition. It doesn't matter, that you are listening, and that's a very important point, that you're listening and you make changes to policies if they're not working. They shouldn't be so nervous about.
Maybe if I were to add one
Yes.
bit there, there's this notion of NIH, not invented here. So if it was not from my party and it came from somebody else, I will not use it, even if it's a damn good idea. And that really should not be the case. If whatever policy that has been instituted had a germination of ideas from somewhere else, acknowledge it, pat on the back, thank you very much. We are in this together.
Yes.
So let's just pat on the back, say thank you very much SDP for suggesting something about medical, and you see we are doing this. We applaud what you did, thank you, but we think we want to do it differently. That's fine. I think pat on the back is a great thing, and you know what, people say, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do it. And so, I come from a world, from the technology world called the open source world, and that's how we do it. We don't care where the ideas come from. It can be from anybody, but we acknowledge it, and we use it, we adapt it, and we give credit, pat on the back, maybe a T-shirt. That's my world, but that's how it should be. It shouldn't be an NIH thing. If it's not invented here, I don't care, and I think that's really shortchanging us.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yep. Thank you very much.